Hello, welcome to another episode of the Electric Bison. I don't know how many Montanans are still around that remember all the briefings I used to give to guard units around our state after the Silent Brotherhood, committed its crimes and was thrown in prison. And during that time, and then before the Oklahoma City bombing, when the Turner Diaries were being sold up here, and there was a real right-wing extremist movement afoot, the Freemen. But if you recall, it's asking a lot, I know, but if you remember, one of the things I suggested is that we not let members of our unit, of the people that we serve with, be singled out for some reason, that they're Hispanic or that they're Jewish or that they're black, and made fun of or ignored, that everybody was part of the team. And I've always felt that that's the way a military unit should operate. I had a sergeant one time that said we'd have a really good unit if we get rid of these 4 or 5 people. Well, I never agreed with that. To me, leadership is all about including everyone and turning it into a real well-oiled organization that gets the mission accomplished. President Trump is the opposite of that. There's no question about that. He's got to be the worst leader I've ever seen. But he's really good about sowing discontent and distrust between people. He can do on a massive scale using internet, mass media to get people to distrust each other, so that he, instead of us who have the sovereignty in this country, that have the authority, so that he can get the votes that he needs to stay in power. He's really a treacherous man. He's really good at it. So now we have before us this Save America Act. Save America. That's the other thing, is how words are so misconstrued, so misused to confuse communication rather than make it clear. So we have the Save America Act, the Voter ID Act, that President Trump now is saying, unless it gets passed, he won't allow any other legislation to be signed in his office. He can do that. But what's really going on here? What's going on here is a man who's a really poor leader, just terribly poor, holding on to power, trying to hold on to power in the next election. And there'll be other things that he'll do as well, but this is pretty significant. He's trying to talk people who supported him and those who didn't into disallowing anyone who votes that doesn't have a birth certificate or a passport or or doesn't come into the voting booth, instead goes by mail, which we did that in the Army. We voted by mail. It was fine. And he's doing it on the inference that the people that do that are crooked. That's just not true. Investigation after investigation have shown that it's just, if there's a few votes that are off, it's just a handful, like literally a handful, out of thousands. And of course that needs to be cleaned up too. But the states are the ones that really are responsible for elections, in the counties. And you'll find people who volunteered to be election judges and get the training, that they soon see that there's all kinds of checks in place to protect our election system. It's very important, and it's always been important to keep it balanced and controlled. And so over the years, it's evolved to be the way it is. Now this guy, who's the worst leader I've ever seen, he's come and he's trying to hold on to power by dividing us against whoever is out there voting by mail, or who hasn't yet gotten a passport. I know lots of people that never travel internationally, don't have a passport, or don't have a birth certificate. It's bogus. It's to divide us. And I remember when I visited the Mauthausen concentration camp in Austria, which was where thousands of people died. And I was looking at the testimony of one of the survivors. It was a terrible place. Marcus Daly, Montana's Marcus Daly, his his son-in-law, Count Sigray, was thrown in there. He was taken away by the Gestapo in Hungary after he tried to get Hungary to separate itself from Hitler's Germany. And Hitler sent 2 divisions into Budapest, and then almost simultaneously, the Gestapo was knocking on Sigray's door. He was a wealthy guy. He was a member of parliament, but he had tried to get the 2 countries to separate. So he went in the slammer at Mauthausen as a political prisoner for a year. He died right when he got out. The effects of it were just too much for him. But he did testify to the 11th Armored Division interviewers that what he had seen when the Russian prisoners were brought into the camp and the Gestapo, not the Gestapo, the Death's Head SS, they poured water over the prisoners and had them standing out in the February cold all through the night, and they froze to death, and he could hear them freezing to death. And of course, a lot of the people that were inside probably felt, thank goodness it's not me, right? Well, that's the problem. You know, it really is the problem. We have to stay together. You have to ask yourself, if a congressman from Montana votes for this voter ID or Save America Act, what was wrong with the votes that elected that congressman already? Why is it suddenly bad? Why is it that Trump is the one that's worried about it instead of all the others, all up and down the line, all the county officers, all the state legislators of both parties, 4 parties? We're going to have independent, we're going to have libertarian, we're going to have Democrat, we're going to have Republican. You know, getting the candidates out and all of us voting for it. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with it. What's wrong with it from Trump's point of view is he's scared. He's really scared. So I'm appealing to all the people that I used to brief in the Guard about the same principle. Don't allow people to be separated out. And, you know, nothing good comes from that. Nothing good comes from that. And Trump is really good. I mean, he's had people that are handicapped. He makes fun of them. He makes fun of all kinds. He calls Mexican families that come into this country one way or another, you know, rapists and murderers. That's bogus. Don't even think about that. Just let our systems go back into place, and we can solve any problems that there really are there. At Mauthausen, I was struck by the survivor's testimony. And I was there. It was really a sobering experience. It was a terrible place. But that survivor said, here at Mauthausen, every act of kindness was an act of resistance. Just trying to help the guy next to you just a little bit, you know, give him a breadcrumb, a bread crust, help him stay warm. And that's where we're headed here, where everybody's being divided. And don't forget, you know, Monday is St. Uro's Day. You know, in Butte they make a joke out of St. Uro's Day. He's an imaginary saint that the Finlanders in Butte created to kind of offset St. Patrick's Day, which is the next day. They say St. Uro is the one that kicked all the grasshoppers out of Finland, just like the Irish say that St. Patrick got rid of all the venomous snakes out of Ireland. So it's a lot of fun. But there was a time back in 1912 where the Finns and the Irish were divided. And the Anaconda Company, for whom they worked, divided them along ethnic lines. Fired 500 Finns, and the Irish were going, boy, good thing it wasn't us. And they didn't protect the Finns, didn't protect their rights. And the Finns, they always had this saying, an injury to one is an injury to all. It's the truth. An injury to one is an injury to all. So I'm asking you, the men and women that were in the Guard, that I know have value public service, and then those of you who voted for President Trump, this is your chance to tell the guy to take a hike, really. An injury to one is an injury to all. Don't let the voter ID Act pass, no matter what his threats. And don't reinforce congressmen and senators that vote for it. There's no reason for him to be afraid of that guy. He's all fluff. Really. Thanks.